I never wanted to be famous. Fame just happened to me. Her name is Stefani Germanotta, a girl from New York with Italian roots, a piano prodigy, a dreamer, a survivor. The world knows her as Lady Gaga, the pop goddess, the rebel, the voice of a generation that refuses to fit in. But behind the costumes, the headlines, the Grammys, and the flashing lights, there was a woman quietly falling apart. The girl who once sang to heal others found herself trying to heal from her own pain. At 39, she finally speaks, not as an icon, but as a woman. And the truth behind her fame is darker, deeper, and more human than anyone imagined. Because behind every legend, there's a soul that bleeds. And behind Lady Gaga, there's Stefani, the girl who refused to disappear. Before the fame, before the world called her Gaga, there was Stefani Joanne Angelina Germanotta, a little girl from New York who dreamed in melodies. Born on March 28, 1986, to an Italian-American family, she grew up in a home filled with the smell of pasta sauce and the sound of her father's old rock records. Her mother, Cynthia, taught her discipline and faith. Her father, Joe, taught her passion and fight. Stefani discovered the piano at 4 years old. By 13, she was writing her own songs. Sad little poems turned into fragile symphonies. She wasn't the popular girl. She was the one who stayed behind after class, the one people called weird for dreaming too big. At school, she was mocked for her looks, her voice, her intensity, but every wound she took found its way back into her music. Each note was a shield, each melody a confession. New York was rough. The city didn't care about your dreams. You had to scream to be heard. And so she did. Out of pain came art. Out of loneliness came rhythm. And somewhere deep inside that fragile little girl, a fire began to burn. A fire that would one day ignite the world. Long before she became Lady Gaga, Stefani was already learning the hardest truth of all. To survive, you must turn your wounds into wings. New York, mid-2000s. The bars were smoky, the rooms were small, and one girl with a keyboard was setting them on fire. Stefani Germanotta played anywhere that would take her. Clubs, cafes, underground parties. Her voice was raw, electric, full of heartbreak and hunger. The crowds didn't know it yet, but they were watching the birth of a storm. After years of rejection, she reinvented herself. She dyed her hair, covered herself in glitter, and created a persona that couldn't be ignored. Inspired by Queen's Radio Gaga, she became Lady Gaga, a name that sounded like rebellion, a name that could never be forgotten. Then, in 2008, everything changed. Her first single, Just Dance, hit the airwaves, and suddenly the world was listening. A year later came Poker Face. In every club, every car, every radio, her voice was everywhere. Gaga wasn't just famous, she was a phenomenon. Her style was outrageous, her energy untouchable. Meat dresses, lightning bolts, towering heels. She made the impossible feel inevitable. Her album The Fame Monster dominated the charts. She won Grammys, broke records, sold out arenas. She became the face of a generation that refused to hide who they were. Her little monsters worshipped her for her boldness, for daring to be different in a world that demanded sameness. But behind the spectacle, behind the fame and fortune, Stefani was fading. The more Lady Gaga shined, the more the girl inside her disappeared. She once said, "I built this armor to protect myself, but somewhere along the way, I became it." By 2010, she had everything: money, power, global adoration. But the higher she climbed, the thinner the air became. And somewhere between the spotlight and the silence, her body and her spirit began to break. The world saw a superstar. She saw a woman slowly falling apart. Her body began to betray her. At first, it was exhaustion. Then, pain. Constant, sharp, unbearable. Doctors gave it a name: fibromyalgia, a chronic illness that left her curled up in agony for days. Fans saw her dancing under fireworks. What they didn't see were the nights she couldn't move, the mornings she couldn't stand, the tears she cried before walking on stage. But physical pain wasn't her only battle. Deep beneath the fame lived an older wound, one she had buried for years. At 19, before the world ever knew her name, she was sexually assaulted by a music producer. She never reported it. She couldn't. The fear, the shame, the disbelief, it silenced her until one day she found the courage to speak. "I was traumatized. I couldn't feel my body. I didn't understand what life was anymore." Those words shook the world. But for her, it wasn't about headlines. It was about healing. The trauma never disappeared. It just changed shape. It lived in her music, in her anxiety, in the loneliness that followed her everywhere. Even surrounded by thousands, she felt unseen. Fame gave her power, but it also built her cage. In the 2017 documentary 5'2", the cameras caught the moments nobody was meant to see. Gaga crying on the floor, clutching her body in pain, saying softly, "I just don't want to be in pain anymore." The world saw the artist. The film showed the woman. Her closest friends say there were times she disappeared, not to escape the world, but to find a reason to stay in it. Depression, panic attacks, insomnia, they became her quiet companions. And still, she performed. Still, she smiled, because she believed the show had to go on, even if she was breaking behind the curtain. "My greatest performance," she once said, "was surviving when I didn't think I could. After years of chaos, silence became her only friend. She stopped performing, stopped pretending. For the first time in her adult life, Lady Gaga allowed herself to simply be, and in that stillness, she began to heal. She turned her pain into melody once again. In 2016, she released Joanne, an album named after her late aunt, a woman she never met, but whose spirit she carried inside her. The songs were stripped down, honest, painfully human. Gone were the glitter and spectacle. What remained was truth. "I realized I didn't want to be perfect anymore," she said. "I just wanted to be real." Each lyric became a confession, each note a step toward forgiveness, for others and for herself. Then came A Star is Born. Hollywood expected a performance. Instead, they witnessed a revelation. As Ali, the shy singer with a trembling voice, Gaga wasn't acting. She was remembering. Her pain, her doubt, her hope, all of it bled into every scene. When she sang Shallow, the world fell silent. It wasn't just a song, it was a prayer for anyone who's ever been afraid to be seen. That song won her an Oscar. But more importantly, it gave her something fame never could: peace. She found her purpose not in perfection, but in connection. Through her Born This Way Foundation, she reached out to those struggling with mental health, to every soul who felt invisible. Her faith deepened, her voice softened. She began to speak about kindness as a form of strength. "I looked for happiness in fame," she said, "but I found it in kindness." Lady Gaga was no longer chasing applause. She was offering healing, not from a stage, but from her heart. Today, Lady Gaga is no longer just a pop star. She's a survivor, an activist, an artist who turned pain into purpose. Her legacy isn't measured in Grammys or chart numbers. It's written in the lives she's touched, in the voices she's helped others find, in the message she's carried to millions who felt unseen. Through her Born This Way Foundation, she's built communities for those who struggle with mental health, identity, and self-worth. She reminds them, and the world, that kindness is not weakness. It's courage in its purest form. Her music changed pop forever. It broke the mold of what it meant to be famous. She showed that art doesn't have to hide its scars. It can celebrate them. For the LGBTQ+ community, she became more than an icon. She became family, a safe place, a reminder that everyone deserves to be loved exactly as they are. In 2021, when she sang the national anthem at the US presidential inauguration, she stood there not as a superstar, but as Stefani Germanotta, a woman who had faced her demons and learned to sing through them. "Don't let the world change who you are," she once said. "Change the world with your kindness." Her story proves that fame fades, but truth endures. That even the brightest lights can flicker, but they never truly go out. Lady Gaga's greatest masterpiece was never an album. It was her courage to be real, because legends aren't born in the spotlight. They're born in the dark, when no one's watching, and they choose to rise anyway. If you've ever danced to her songs, maybe. Without knowing it, you've also danced with her pain. Lady Gaga has shown us that behind every glittering stage, there's a silent struggle. Behind every smile, a story of survival. Her journey reminds us that strength isn't the absence of weakness. It's the courage to face it, to keep going, even when the spotlight fades. Today, her voice doesn't just belong to the charts. It belongs to anyone who has ever felt broken and learned to begin again. So tell us, which part of Lady Gaga's story touched you the most? Leave it in the comments below, because remembering isn't about looking back. It's about seeing how far we've all come. Behind every legend, there's a heartbeat. And behind every superstar, a human being who dared to say, I'm still here.